Welcome to NDM English. I am Nate, and this discussion will focus on the second section called Appropriate Enough, the first of the three spirits of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. The apparition appearing this night will look at Ebeneezer Scrooge's past Christmases, trying to remind him of better days. In some ways, this is the man's origin story. There will be glimpses of school, love, friendship, and fun. All of these are missing from the present life of a money-loving businessman who can no longer connect to the humanity daily walking the streets. The purpose of going back in time for the ghost of Christmas past is for Scrooge to reconnect with his heart and show that people are not all bad. Some of them cared for him with love and gentleness, with only his greed pushing them away. The introduction of the ghost is very disorienting for Scrooge because the time doesn't feel right. He was promised a visit by a ghost on the following night, but he wakes up in what seems like the same night that he fell asleep with when Marley came. With some shock, he discovers the clock has turned back to midnight, Scrooge having gone to sleep past 2 a.m. in the morning. Perhaps he thinks he had slept in until noon of the next day. This conclusion is quickly dismissed because it is dark at night and there's no sounds coming from outside to indicate midday activity. With shock, he comes to the conclusion that he had slept the whole day and into the next night. With the promise of the next ghost at 1 in the morning, Scrooge can't go back to sleep as he dreads the visit. He counts down the time as it approaches closer to that one visit time. Just as what is to come next, time is out of sync with reality. It can pass as quickly like a person having fallen asleep or slow down waiting for dreaded expectations. Time itself becomes unpredictable and without logic. Scrooge has entered a dream state of existence where the unexpected and unbelievable have become common. When the ghost does appear, it has seemed to appear both young and old. There's no wrinkles, but the features of the face still resemble an old man. It also seems to be far away, making it even smaller. Now, more astonishing than that is how there's a bright light surrounding the ghost that sometimes flickers in and out. He is dressed in what probably can be called a toga, with a very pretty belt around him. Now, at one point, all the arms and legs are visible, but then a few of them are gone as the light flickers. Stranger still is that sometimes there appears multiple arms or legs that soon are no longer visible. Then they reappear. And then, just as suddenly, there is the right amount of legs and arms. Now, there are some contradictions with the ghost, such as holding a winter green holly, while the clothes are trimmed with summer flowers. Most astonishing of all is this light beam that shoots straight out from the ghost's head. This seems to eliminate everything. Now, the ghost holds a cap underneath his arm that then keeps out the light when it becomes too bright. Now, peculiar and even frightening as the ghost looks, these represent memories from the past. How we perceive the past is often brighter and more magnificent than what really happened. The past determines our ability to notice what is around us, sometimes making things easier to see, and at other times obscuring our vision. Sometimes our memories go in and out about something. We remember something, then we forget it, then maybe we think about something in multiple ways. So we can interpret and tell what happened in the past, and at times, all of these memories no longer exist. So like the ghost, memories of the past illuminate, while they can also distort or go completely out. Now, a key concept for the story is the cap held under the ghost of Christmas past's arm. Now, the apparition always has it, but doesn't want to use it at all. It has been forced upon him by others, usually the mortal man, who created it to help cover the brightness of the head. Now, Scrooge himself is in discomfort by all this light that's coming from the head and wishes to cover it, but the ghost becomes angry. Scrooge is one of those who has made the hat and sought to make the ghost wear it to obscure some of the brightness. Fear of and anger about the past can cause some people to try and suppress it, extinguishing what might be learned by its examination. Others have a dim view of the past and believe nothing good has ever happened. They seek desperately to cover it up and not have to look at its brilliance. But the light of the past can never be fully put out. Later on, when Scrooge gets his hands on the cap and tries to cover the ghost up, almost the whole amount of light is cut off. But despite his efforts to make sure that the light does not show itself, a lot of that light escapes from the bottom of the cap and floods along the floor. So anything from the past that is hidden will leak out eventually. Now, taking Scrooge's hand, the ghost leads him past his bed, through his wall, and back in time to his old school days. It is, of course, Christmas time when they arrive at the past, when Scrooge was still a young man. All of his classmates and friends are leaving the school for the holidays, but Scrooge is alone, sitting in a dark room. Now, this vision gives us the first real emotion other than disgust from Scrooge, who cries at the sight of all the children singing Christmas songs on their way home. It seems to be a memory full of emotional importance to him. Now, we enter the room where the young Scrooge sat, and he becomes amazed to see an old friend walk by the window. It is an older person wearing foreign clothes with the name Ali Baba and leading a donkey carrying wood. Scrooge recognizes other people he liked from the past who should actually not have existed, but they are very real to this young Scrooge. The mention of a genie and Robinson Crusoe immediately indicates that these are not real people, but characters from the books that he reads. Scrooge laughs and cries at these characters because, compared to how he's treated by the other kids of his age, these readings are good memories. Now, this is supposed to remind Scrooge how at one time he had a vivid and open imagination. He was able to indulge in fantastical thoughts and adventures instead of his current completely practical life. People he knew in the city would be very surprised that he once was a lover of literature and had such a vivid imagination. Now, surprise at his reading adventure and exotic stories is punctuated by the implied loneliness of the youth. All the young students his age are gone home. He is found alone in a dark room imagining friendships that will never actually exist. Why he is not going home or how he is treated by the other students is not fully explained. The happiness he gets from books replaces what little he gets from real human interaction. Perhaps as he grows up, the love of money, a practical and real commodity, replaces this childlike fantasy of books. He can physically feel and do things with money that is not possible with imaginary friends. The money replaces the reality of people that he misses throughout his young life. Now, not everyone ignores him or treats him badly. There's always a few people in his life that kept trying to keep him from becoming completely intolerable. First and foremost was his beloved younger sister. She came for him to pick him up from school with permission from their father. She comes to him and embraces him and pulls him home, showing desperately how much she loves him. Now, it appears from her description of his father that he is not such a kind person. There's a sense that because the sister had to get permission to bring Scrooge home from school, that there was some kind of a problem between the father and the son. He was sent away to school, perhaps as a punishment, or even a protection. Considerations that the father was drunk or abusive can only be speculated, but no harm seems to have been done to the sister. She describes their father as having mellowed out, and Scrooge becoming a man, gaining responsibilities and respect. She most likely acted as a peacekeeper between the father and the son, loved and loving both of them. She was a sweet young girl that no doubt Scrooge very much loved. Now, sadly, as happens so frequently to Scrooge in his life, this loving sister dies as a young woman. She was old enough to have had one child, the nephew who tried to get him in the spirit of Christmas. Once again, because of the response Scrooge had to the mention of his nephew, there can be the speculation that she died in childbirth. Scrooge is uncomfortable at the mention that she has had a child, as if it brings back some painful memories. Maybe this is only because the nephew reminds him of his now dead sister he so desperately misses. But it wouldn't be uncommon at the time for a woman to die at childbirth. Perhaps in giving birth to the nephew, his sister died, and Scrooge sees him as having caused her death. Well, whatever might have happened, the scene is quickly changed. Next is a lively party put on by his first boss right after work hours ended. It is a completely different work atmosphere than what Scrooge has created in his own business affairs. Everyone is cheerful and happy, ready to eat and drink while dancing. No one is more alive at the moment than the boss and his wife, who are the first to revel in the enjoyments of the occasion. Scrooge of the present looks on with wonderment at what life was like as a young apprentice. Everyone seemed to love this old boss of his, and Scrooge was one of the admirers. It was more than just the boss that was beloved, but his wife as well, who helps encourage the partygoers and enjoy themselves. After the party ended, everyone goes home happy and ready for Christmas that will be happening the next day. Even the two apprentices. Scrooge, one of them, went to bed satisfied by the afternoon's delights. There's no indication that Scrooge didn't like this Christmas, as well as what he was to become as a businessman, with his dislike of people. The old boss of Scrooge's apprenticeship was the template of what could have been, but something happened to Scrooge that made him lack any sense of fun and enjoyment out of life. What caused such a hard attitude to form is never fully explained. The dance party scene did awaken in Scrooge a sense that he had neglected any positive interaction with his clerk. He wished, if only for a moment, to have done something for him. All throughout his life, Scrooge has had his heart open just a crack to greater love for others, but it has just as quickly extinguished or been forgotten. Nothing could be more painful than losing the romantic love of a woman because of personal decisions. That is what happened to Scrooge because of his love of money. He didn't start out loving money and was loved by this woman for that, but he soon, for whatever reason, gained this obsession with cold hard cash. The ghost shows him the scene of this breakup, making it impossible for him to have a normal life. She is upset that he spends far more time earning wealth than showing his love for her. His old boss, with his loving wife, successful business, and charitable heart, was a template Scrooge could have followed, but ended up rejecting. His girlfriend notices this greedy path he's started to take, and wants nothing to do with the loveless marriage, even if it has lots of wealth. She abandons him to his own obsession with the money. Now, there's no explanation of how he became so obsessed with earning money. Speculating from what he says to his girlfriend about the fear of poverty probably indicates that he had come from a very poor family. His father sending him off to school could have been a way to have one less mouth to feed. That might have even been the problem that he had with his father, is that the two were against each other, having no money. The earlier description of the school as cold and having little to feed the students does seem to indicate an existence as a charity education. It is a classic case of his not wanting to become like his father and remain poor. Fortune-seeking came at an emotional price just as devastating as that poverty. His nephew was right. He was rich and financially secure, but had nothing and nobody. As if to emphasize the point, the ghost shows one last vision of the past in a house with a woman and her family. With some specific hints, the ghost of Christmas Past opens up the scene of what we expect is his ex-girlfriend living with her family. She has a beautiful child and eventually will arrive a loving husband. Scrooge looks at this scene with this woman and he still expresses love for her that he wishes he could have been a part of. He imagines that this little girl was actually his, and it could have been if it wasn't for this love of money breaking off the engagement. Now, when this husband does come home, he mentions actually seeing Scrooge alone at his business, waiting for the death of Marley. All of this is just too much for Scrooge to bear. He was very much on his way to gaining the whole world, but he's going to lose his soul. At this point, Scrooge grabs the cap and tries to cover the light of the past that has informed his present. But it is of no use. All the light of the truth springs out on the floor, as explained earlier. Scrooge will soon have to face what he has become. Click the subscribe button and notification bell to not miss the next installments and analysis.